Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Amber Rose, also known as the Religious Hippie. You can basically follow me on any social media platform, or you can check out my official website at thereligioushippie.com. So it is a very cold day here in Chicago. I am freezing my butt off right now, and so I'm still getting over a little bit of a cold. Not like the cold itself, but more like allergies now because of all the dead leaves and everything. So I apologize. If I'm coughing and stuff throughout this video. I'm really trying not to. But today's topic is going to just be a Q&A. I figured I haven't done one of these in a really long time, and as always, you guys have sent me some amazing questions, so I can't wait to get into those. And next week, if you guys were looking for a Halloween-themed video, that's going to be next week's video, because I figured it'd make more sense if I released it closer to like Halloween and Hallowtide. So that video is going up next week. So if you guys are looking for like a Halloween themed video, stay tuned. So with all of that being said, let's just get into the video. So our first question is, what is your favorite book right now? So my most favorite book right now is The Diary of an American Exorcist. It's phenomenal. I absolutely love this book. I would not suggest it for anybody who's really scrupulous about the spiritual side of things, like demons and angels. If that all freaks you out, I would not suggest this book. But personally, for me, I am really into that stuff. I think it's really fascinating. And so the Catholic side of the spiritual realm just fascinates me. And Father Ripperger has helped me understand that a lot better. You know, his talks have helped me immensely on YouTube. But this book just has a little place in my heart. The priest specifically goes into how we need to bless our food because there can be demons on food. Cursing food is very popular these days, and people don't realize that. He also goes into the dangers of crystals and yoga and the New Age movement. He goes into just a bunch of important topics, and I think it's a phenomenal read, and I highly suggest it if you don't get freaked out by that type of stuff. Our second question is, can we have more vlogs? Yes, if that is something you guys are into, I can totally make more vlogs. They take a little bit longer to film and record, and like film and record are the same thing, to edit. But if that's something you guys are interested in, I'm totally down to do that for you guys. They're really fun to make, and you know, I always have something going on in my life that I don't mind vlogging about, so I'm totally down for that. Our next question is, how do I make Catholic friends when I'm out of school? Well, I guess it kind of depends. So are you out of school because you're homeschooled, or are you out of school because it's like break? You know, like you get breaks and stuff. I guess it doesn't really matter either way, but the best place to find Catholic friends is your local church. Most churches have young adult groups. That's where I've met some of my closest friends. But you know, it's hit or miss. Some churches have them, some churches don't. If your church does have it, highly suggest you find out what times and dates, and you go to them, and you just force yourself to socialize and meet people. If they don't, then I would suggest maybe trying to start one. Like, there's no harm in trying to start one. Talk to your local parish priest and who's ever running the programs unit. I don't know how that works. But maybe try and start a young adult group. But either way, there's always going to be at least one church that has one near you, so maybe do a little church hopping and find out. I've had more luck finding friends at young adult groups, at Catholic young adult groups, than I have anywhere else, but you could also find good Catholic friends at pro-life rallies or even at soup kitchens. It's just a little less likely. Okay, our next question is, what do you see as the most difficult roadblock to navigate in Catholic dating today? It's kind of hard to say because there's kind of a lot of roadblocks, really, if we start to think about it. Mainly, like, are you traditional Latin Mass goer? Are they Novus Ordo goer? Because there's some fundamental differences in those that could pose as roadblocks, like communion in the hand versus on the tongue while kneeling, that kind of thing. I think in general, though, it's just really hard to date, even if you're not Catholic. But in the Catholic realm especially, I mean, you want to make sure you're on the same page when it comes to, like, birth control and all those things. Somebody might be Catholic, but they're actually lukewarm, and you might be on fire for your faith, and that poses a lot of issues in itself. And so I guess in general, just not being on the same page with a lot of things with faith life and stuff, because you want to be equally yoked, you want to be able to lead each other to heaven. That's the whole point of marriage. But if there's fundamental things that are different, then it's going to be really hard to do that. I think in general, the roadblock that's hard to navigate is just finding somebody you click with. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people out there, men and women, who don't approach dating properly. They view it as like some kind of interrogation, and this person has to meet all of my standards instead of just, oh, I'm just going to meet this person because I like them and I want to get to know more about them. So it can be really hard. I think there's a lot of things, but those would be my top. Our next question is, how do I include God in my daily school life? I'm a junior in high school. I think it can be really difficult to do this in high school, mainly because of the environment we're in. I'm not sure if you go to public school, private school, or Catholic school, but saying grace before you eat your lunch or something like that is amazing. You can do that, of course. And then, you know, on your way to school, if you want to silently say some morning prayers, like the morning offering or the rosary, you can do that. And then at night, you can, of course, incorporate in some type of a night prayer, like the guardian angel prayer, or something like that. You can also get the Bible app on your phone, so on your way to school or back or whenever you have free time, you can get into the Word of God. That's really helpful as well. But in general, just making time for little prayers throughout the day is going to be really helpful in your relationship with God. Okay, our next question is, are your friends primarily religious Catholic, or do you have a mix of secular friends as well? I would have to say when I first started out in my faith, I definitely had a good mix. Now that I'm looking at my friend group, I mean, I definitely have some secular friends, but they're not as many as they used to be. Now a lot of my friends are primarily Catholic, and they've kind of come back into their faith a lot more recently as well, which is really great because before they were more like lukewarm Catholics. But it's not like I had any huge falling out with the other friends, the secular friends and the Protestant friends. It's more like we just kind of like drifted apart because our differences became more abundant, and so we just kind of drifted apart. We're still friends, you know, in the sense of there's no ill will towards anybody, but we just don't see each other or talk that much anymore. So, and you know what, that's honestly okay. A lot of people always get hurt when that happens in a friend group, and I definitely used to get hurt about that as well when I was in high school, but now that I'm older, I noticed that drifting apart is just a part of growing up. You mature differently than your friends, you grow up differently than your friends, and while you might have seen them a lot, you know, in the past, that was usually probably because you went to school with them or you had an extracurricular activity with them or something like that, and now that you're grown up and you have your own interests and hobbies and stuff, things just kind of drift away. So I definitely have more Catholic friends than secular friends now, but I still have a couple, which is, they're very sweet, they're wonderful, and they help me a lot, so love them all. Our next question is, what music do you listen to? Is there any that glorifies God but isn't the stereotypical gospel sound? I know exactly what you mean. So I personally listen to a lot of Gregorian Chant. I have my own Spotify Gregorian Chant playlist. I'll link it below for you guys if you guys want to listen to that. Gregorian Chant's just super calming to me. I usually fall asleep to it, so I don't listen to it all that often when I'm like in the car or something because it kind of makes me sleepy. My music taste really hasn't changed since I've come back into the faith, but I have become more picky. So like if there's any GDs in any music or anything like that, it's a no-go for me. No taking the Lord's name in vain, nothing like that. I refuse. There's also a lot of clean versions out there on Spotify too, which is nice. But I'm a little more picky now, but my music taste is still basically the same. It's still like 80s rock and like the Beatles and stuff like that. So, you know, Air Supply, Boston. I haven't really changed in my music taste because technically there's nothing wrong with it. But Gregorian Chant might be a good option for you. So I'll link that below for you in the description below. Do you think that one should take decisions even if one is uncertain? I think it depends. If the decision making means to follow God's will, then yes, because you're going to be uncertain about that, but we need to trust and lean on God. If it's not God's will though, and it's of your own understanding, like you want to do it type thing, it depends on what it is. You know, it really does. There needs to be more context. It's kind of hard to tell because it's like, all decisions are uncertain. We won't always get the exact outcome we expect. But if it's God's will and we're uncertain about it, but we know it's God's will, then we can fully commit ourselves to that decision, knowing that it's going to be for the greater good, not just for us, but of those around us. But if it's our own will, it can be corrupted at times. So I'm going to need a little more context, but hopefully that kind of helps. What do you normally do on All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day? So obviously All Saints' Day is a holy day of obligation, so I go to Mass, and then usually I'll read some stories about some saints. Nothing too crazy, really. Sometimes there's like an All Saint Day party or a trunk or treat at a local church and I'll help out at, but nothing too crazy. I also go to Mass on All Souls Day, and I'll usually visit my family in the graveyards, and I'll just say a prayer for them, and I'll leave some roses or some flowers for them type thing, and I'll pray for the holy souls in purgatory. And basically the same thing for Halloween. I do the same thing. Those whole 3 days are Hallowtide, which I'll talk about next week in my video, but I don't do too much for them, but going to Mass and praying for the souls in purgatory and asking for my patron saint's intercession is just like really important to me, so those are some things that I do. Okay, next question. How do you persevere to be on social media almost 24/7? Does it get tiring? Yes, it really, really does. Not like physically tiring, but like emotionally, spiritually, mentally tiring. It can definitely get tiring. And it's mainly just because there's so much information being pushed at us at all times when we're on social media. It's not just like, it's not like, I don't know how to explain it. It's just like constantly being pushed in our faces. And so because of that, we mentally get very tired. And as an influencer, it can be very hard for me to draw that line between, okay, work is done versus just scrolling on social media. The best remedy for this is literally me just turning my phone off. I set myself a work schedule, basically a 9 to 5 job. So after 5 p.m., I basically don't work anymore, or I try not to. But of course, that always changes depending on how much work I get done. But I try to set myself a time limit of a workday schedule and not going over those hours. Also, keeping my faith at the forefront of my mind is very important, and that's what my ministry does. It's wonderful because I am literally living out my faith, but I'm helping other people do it as well. But doing that privately is also very important to me. So going to adoration, going to daily mass, not posting about it or anything like that is also very important. So I just kind of recognize that God has given me this ministry and he can take it away if he wishes. And so I'm just doing his will as best as I can. I'm just a tool in his hands. And I'm just going to continue doing what I do and set limits for myself and making sure that I'm taking care of myself spiritually, because when I'm taking care of myself, I can better take care of you. So that's what I try to do and keep in my head. It can be hard, but it's doable. Our next question is, how can I better learn the rosary prayers? Honestly, repetition is key, honestly. Just like keep repeating it, just keep doing it. That is going to really help you. Another way you can do it is there's sometimes podcasts or YouTube videos or something where they're praying the rosary and you can pray along with them. I find that very helpful. Even writing out the prayers might help you remember them as well. Just write them out and read them and that type of thing. It'll just take some time, but you'll definitely get there. Okay, next question. What made you want to start this ministry? So I didn't actually start it. God did. It kind of just started as a post on TikTok. I didn't expect anything to happen. I didn't expect anything to happen from it. And people were just really in love with my story and my faith and things like that. And so I gained a large following basically overnight, thousands and thousands overnight. It was very odd, to say the least. But I knew it was God's will, because otherwise there's no other reason why I would be here today, that he would allow me to continue pursuing this ministry. Obviously, he knows that it is doing good, and I know it's his will because he hasn't taken it away from me. But he has taken TikTok away from me, and I told you guys that story already, but I'll post the video in the description if you guys want to know why I got banned from TikTok. So all in all, I did not start this ministry, but I took what God put on my lap and I just went with it. And it has opened up amazing doorways. It has opened up amazing friendships and opportunities. And it's given me opportunities to grow in my faith more and to really help others in their faith. And I'm just very grateful, and it's all due to God. I take no recognition for any of this. My ministry is very important to me because I know how much it impacts other people and how much it impacts myself, and how much I've grown and I've learned from my ministry. And I'd love to continue keeping my ministry going for as long as possible. I have no plans on quitting or anything like that, but it can be expensive, and so it's very hard sometimes financially. And that's just something I understand when I come into a ministry like this, and I know that God will provide, and that's the most important thing to me. And so I want to continue this for as long as possible. And even though I didn't start this ministry, I accept the responsibility of this ministry, and I'm doing my best to fulfill what God has placed on me. Our next question is, do you have a podcast? Yes, I do have a podcast. It's called A Catholic's Perspective with the Religious Hippie. It's wonderful. We have amazing guests on. We talk about Catholicism and the pro-life movement. So many amazing discussions and just conversations in general. Highly suggest you check it out. Chloe and I started a new segment called Girl Talk, which comes out kind of like in between the normal episodes. They're kind of like bonus episodes, which is great. And we just talk about everything girly, and our last episode we just did, which came out a couple days ago on Friday, we basically talked about just finding peace in your discernment and where you are in life right now. We talk about relationship advice, we talk about being single, just like a lot of great information that I think will really help my girlies out there. So I highly suggest the guys listen too, though I know it's not technically targeted towards men. I think you guys could really learn a lot. And so you guys are absolutely invited to listen as well. It's not just for girls, even though it is targeted mostly for girls, but I think you guys might like it too. Okay, and our last question for today is how to combat impure thoughts. It can be really difficult. The best thing you can do is start praying, obviously. Hail Marys are great for that. Just keep praying until the temptation goes away. Impure thoughts, it depends on exactly what it is. Is it because of a memory you have, or is it because of something you saw, or is it because you're lusting after another person? If you're lusting after another person, it's really important to remember that that person is somebody's son or daughter, and that they have a name and a life, and they deserve respect and dignity. Another thing that might help is also removing yourself from the situation. That's a great way to do that. And if all else fails, I highly suggest getting a spiritual director. I think everybody should get a good spiritual director and bring things up to them like this, so that they can maybe give you more personalized tips to help you combat these things. I can really only generalize things for you guys. I don't know you guys specifically as a friend or anything, and so I can only generalize what I have learned and what I've done. I can't exactly make it personalized to what you guys need. And so that's why I think a spiritual director is so, so important, and I highly suggest everybody get a spiritual director. But with all of that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, the Halloween themed video is coming out next week, so stay tuned for that. I'll be discussing Halloween and Hallowtide, how I celebrate, how you should celebrate, all that fun stuff. And with all of that being said, I love you guys. I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Bye!